Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of TNT Live, as it has to be done on a Friday because Wyatt is joining up with the Jews, and he has to do Shabbos, right? Is that what the reason is?
I don't know, something like that. Or I have work, but it's probably one of the two.
One of the two. Either Wyatt's becoming an Orthodox Jew and needs to get this in before sundown, or he just has to go to work. We'll let you decide. So tonight we're going to be doing Freedom Convoy, the Emergencies Act, and Rolling Thunder. We're going to make this one a bit shorter. So if you like here, just like, share, subscribe. Because later tonight we did give, we do have a correspondent on the ground in Ottawa who will be live streaming from Rolling Thunder. So if you want any live streams from Rolling Thunder, make sure you're on the National Telegraph Facebook page. Across all platforms, we'll put up videos. But if you want to go live and interact, Salma and Seema will be on the ground in Ottawa this weekend doing some live streams for you guys there. So we're going to keep this one a bit shorter just to give him time to go live later tonight. So if you want, we'll give you sort of the breakdown of, what's happening, who's behind it, laws and whatever. And then if you want to see stuff on the ground, we're going to, get out of your way so that stuff can start later. Also, good news. If you're a Packer fan like me, Wyatt Claypool and I have both agreed to play wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers next year. It will not affect TNT's content schedule. We will be making content covering the news that is important to you and be the starting two wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers, considering they don't want to draft anyone and they don't want to sign anyone in free agency. We have stepped up and volunteered as tribute. So we will be the wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers next year, and we will be still doing the National Telegraph, so nothing will stop. We'll just also be playing football with Aaron Rodgers. So, Wyatt, where do you want to start?
I don't know. That's just the news has been extremely convenient. So I was happy to schedule the episode today, knowing I only have to talk about Freedom Convoy stuff for an entire episode. I don't need to actually, get out of my range. So it's perfect. So if Justin Trudeau's done anything for us, he's kept us in our range of just having us talk about Freedom Convoys forever because of all the stupid news around it. So I think we should probably just start off with the first thing first, which is Justin Trudeau having a Liberal judge doing an investigation to see if the Liberals did anything unethical in putting forward the Liberals Emergency Act invocation.
Yeah, I think the appropriate title, if we were going to do an article, which if I get time, we could be Liberals appoint a Liberal who donated to the Liberal Party to investigate the Liberals, right? And I think that's I think that basically sums up what's gone down into how the Emergencies Act is going to be looked at there. It is pretty much the definition of a sham investigation. Now, this should be pretty important because they've kind of given away the bag. Like Jim Watson, mayor of Ottawa, is on the CBC, is on the news media, national media, saying we needed the Emergencies Act. No, it was a good thing. We needed it. Why? Because we didn't have a way to force the tow truck companies into removing the cars. So we violated everyone's civil rights and declared a national emergency to get tow trucks is the official line. Now, that's the least. I get it. It's better than the truth, right? But it kind of gives away the plot there, where it's like, oh, well, we need to force some tow truck companies to do exactly what we wanted to. So that's why we needed the Emergencies Act, which is one. All right. Now, there's a lot of things that we just have to get out, I think, off the bat. The protest was not illegal. In February, a judge had ruled that the truckers in Ottawa had a legal right to be there. The truckers were not the same as the blockade in the truckers in Ottawa, not the same as blockades. All the blockades were cleared prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act. So that's another big lie there was. And, the third massive lie is there was no arson committed by the truckers that was used as a thing. All those reports, like CBC, were tracked as hoax. The convoy was not primarily foreign funded. It was primarily domestically funded.
I'll add a fifth one. The convoy was not attempting to overthrow the government. Sure. And number 6 was that the convoy supporters did not have tear gas to fire at the police.
Yeah, I still love that tweet from the CBC reporter of, I saw tear gas. The Ottawa police has tweeted there was no tear gas. So there was no tear gas. Move on, everyone. Carry on with your day. That's
quickly, just on the Liberal judge, there is a chance that the Liberal judge might be completely neutral. There is always that chance. But the whole point is, even if he would act in completely good faith, he actually wants to get down to the bottom of what were the Liberals thinking, what was their thought process going towards the Emergencies Act, was there evidence to back up their actions and whatnot. That could always happen. The problem is that if you are a rational person, you would never put a Liberal judge, if you're a Liberal prime minister, to investigate this, because you understand that it looks bad. Justin Trudeau doesn't care that it looks bad because he's doing it for the payoff that he'll be easier on them. Because if you wanted this to be completely neutral and you didn't want anyone to accuse you of corruption on just the investigation of the Emergencies Act, you would have picked like a conservative judge, or you would have just picked someone who's been down the middle, completely neutral for his entire career. Justin Trudeau just thinks that it's worse. Like it's worse for an actually well done investigation to be undertaken rather than just the blatant look of collusion between him and like a liberal judge investigating him.
So I'll take it one step further there. I agree with what you're saying you're saying on the government's end what they should have done. And you're totally right that Justin Trudeau wants a liberal judge who will go lenient on him because he knows the media will not cover the corruption ties and he can kind of get away with whatever he wants. I'll go one step further and say it's nearly impossible that this judge would be neutral. Now, it is very possible that a liberal judge or a conservative judge can throw out their politics and do good judging work. There are a lot of judges who are very capable of not taking their politics inside of a courtroom. There are those judges. However, in a case like this, a judge who has donated to the Liberal Party, even if he is capable of being politically neutral, any judge that is capable of politically neutral, there is a very high likelihood that they themselves would realize the perception of a conflict of interest and on that ground recuse themselves. So what I'm saying is any liberal judge who has the ability to judge this neutrally would realize if they've donated publicly to the Liberal Party, they should recuse themselves to avoid the illusion of...
and that tends to be how it works, is that you should be, as a judge, taking the initiative in recusing yourself because you know that there could even be the thought that something unjust was done. Because it doesn't matter how neutral you can possibly be in the courtroom. If you're a liberal judge and it's like a liberal versus conservative matter, you should recuse yourself simply because it's like very, very obvious that even if you were neutral, people will have a decent claim at saying that you were biased. That's why it was so ridiculous when there was that liberal judge who put like Tamara Lich in prison for like 2 weeks because there was there was so many other judges who could have taken the case, and you picked the person who had specifically gone out seeking Justin Trudeau's endorsement when she had run for the party in 2011, I believe, or 2013 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the second time that a liberal judge, and again, because this has already been around. So this is probably going to be the most important investigation in our country's history. However, it's going to be completely corrupted by this judge. And like the reason why he should recuse himself is because he should realize, okay, even if I do my job properly and I conclude that the Emergencies Act was invoked legally and there was enough evidence that substantiated and it was rightfully invoked, even if he could conclude that, he should realize that if he draws that conclusion, there will always be perceived bias by the public, and it won't be seen, well, okay, yeah, Amanda beat me to it, right? There's a perceived bias there where it would completely undermine the findings. Just in the same way that if a conservative judge was looking into it, who would give it to the Conservative Party, and he looks into it and he finds if he correctly finds the Emergencies Act is illegally invoked or it was, criminal what they did, well then, half the country is always going to look at that with skepticism, which is why you need a judge here who can sort of be above the perception of bias so the Canadian people can respect the findings. No matter what half the country, unless the only way the country will respect these findings is if they side with, the convoy, right? So because then the Liberals have to say, oh, okay, well, he was a Liberal judge.
And that's just a greater liberal corruption issue overall. Is I don't think that you could almost appoint any judge without people assuming it would be corrupted by the Liberals, but it's just because they have such a history. But I thought you had a really good way of explaining how the judge is going to corrupt the investigation, or in your mind or your theory of how he will corrupt the investigation when you're on the Richard Serrett show, because you said something about how when he's investigating it, he's kind of going to do a backwards investigation where it has nothing to do with Justin Trudeau. It's going to be, how did those mean, evil truckers make Justin Trudeau put the Emergency Act into place? And it's going to be kind of from that angle, if you could explain that.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've read and what it looks like, the investigation is kind of set up to look at, the truckers in the convoy, investigate them, and then see if their behavior warranted the Emergency Act. So it looks like the onus and where the investigation is kind of set up to investigate the Freedom Convoy and then conclude if the government's actions were valid to deal with the Freedom Convoy instead of investigating the government process to invoke the Emergencies Act and see if that was valid. So they're kind of doing it backwards, right? So what he's going to do is he's going to say, okay, there was a Nazi flag, there was a Confederate flag. This person yelled really, really loudly. Zexi Lee felt scared. This Ottawa councillor said she felt scared. This woman from the Ottawa suburbs who was nowhere near the Freedom Convoy said she was very, very, very scared. So you had a lot of people very scared. And so that means there was an ethos of fear had swept off. Like, so he can do this nonsense and then kind of conclude by all the stuff he wants to cherry pick on the Freedom Convoy. So the Freedom Convoy is very evil. It had foreign funding. Yeah. Like, and by foreign funding, they mean some guy in Iowa said, oh, I like this thing. Here's $20. Like, that's what they mean by foreign funding. But the judge can conclude, well, someone from Iowa gave him $20. So they were funded by American, the American far right, because this guy in Iowa, I found he funded the Freedom Convoy. And I see a tweet here where he says there's two genders and does some hate speech. So they can go through that whole process, right? So it's likely that he's just going to stack up hits against the Freedom Convoy and then say, was Emergency Act, did the Freedom Convoy meet the threshold for invoking the Emergency Act? Not did the government meet the threshold for the proper process of invoking it? That's likely what goes down.
And then they're also going to potentially, I think you also mentioned that they're going to do the reverse of the version of Minority Report, where they're going to find out that because you did something 10 years ago, and despite being completely peaceful in the present, that means that there was still the potential on the ground for you to get violent, which meant that it was okay for the government to preemptively, get violent themselves against the truckers. Because like you were saying, like something about they're going to find out, this trucker once got charged with domestic abuse in 2007. And ergo, all the truckers are probably involved in organized crime.
And I think you'll see a lot of digging from the government over the next year or so onto sort of anyone who has supported the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, because you see it from the Ottawa Police too. Like they've been saying now, convoy organizers, your past, present, and future behavior is going to be taken into effect. Like, no, you're the Ottawa Police. You should only take in their present behavior. If they come in motorcycles and drive the motorcycles like through a bunch of store shop windows and start doing donuts inside a local coffee shop saying like white power, okay, arrest them, right? That is a crime you're doing, right? But if they posted some like a racy joke on Twitter in 2011, that's not something you can arrest them for today. But that's what they're essentially, that's the whole justification for the Emergencies Act is, look at all these people and look what they said before they got to Ottawa. None of it manifested, but we had reason to believe bad things might happen. Now, did any of it ever manifest? No, it never manifested. But you even have like national security experts who won't reveal their sources and just whisper to Justin Trudeau, oh, we felt very scared. And there was a national security threat during the convoy. So it's likely that the judge would be fed a lot of that, a lot of expert opinions saying, oh, this expert says people were scared. And look at the Twitter feed of, all these different people. And of course, they're going to make it seem like Pat King planned the whole thing. Like Pat King literally had sex with Pat King and then got pregnant with his own baby and then birthed it. And then all the trucks started coming out of his man uterus. And all of them were like dressed in Klan robes. And that's how the Freedom Convoy started. So I would.
Those are very odd aside.
If that is the creation myth behind the Freedom Convoy in the liberal Bible, it's something along those lines.
Well, anyways, with the thing is too is that the Liberals, while this investigation is also happening, have also tried to preemptively sort of say what's off limits for the investigator to look at, which includes all the sort of cabinet discussions before the invocation of the Emergency Act about invoking it. Because what I've heard is that there's a lot of people in the cabinet, despite it seeming like a unified unit within the sort of like the Prime Minister's office and his cabinet, that a lot of people were extremely upset with what he was doing, even the people who he would probably consider some of his closest loyalists, because it was an obviously stupid thing to do. And sort of Justin Trudeau's political survival kind of relies on everyone perceiving that the Liberal Party's still together, and there isn't this kind of well-known at this point 30 MPs who really wanted Justin Trudeau thrown out as like the Liberal leader before the Freedom Convoy had ended.
Yeah, I think you hit on a good point there, where like they want to say this is the Iran deal. This is our version of the Iran deal. So for all of you just learning about how ridiculous this is every time I look at the Iran deal and the JCPOA and the international monitoring. And one of the crazy things is about the Iran deal is The reason why they don't find nuclear weapons in Iran is part of the Iran deal negotiated by Barack Obama, the greatest statesman of all time, is the international weapons monitors, when they go to Iran, they have to call Iran before they get there, and Iran can choose what places in the country are off limits. So you can have a nuclear plant that builds nuclear weapons, and they can say, yeah, nuclear arms inspectors, you're not allowed to look there. And surprise, surprise, they haven't found any nuclear weapons in Iran, because Iran gets to choose where the people look and where they don't look, and when they look and when they don't look. So surprise, surprise, the person being investigated just gets to choose where and when they're investigated, and the investigators don't find anything. This is the exact same thing as the Emergencies Act investigation, is the Liberals get to choose, oh, we're going to open it up completely, except for cabinet, here, and here, all the places where we illegally colluded to, squash the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and invoke the Emergencies Act. But you're definitely allowed to read Catherine McKenna's recipe blog. So Catherine McKenna has a recipe for couscous, environmentally friendly couscous. You can start your investigation there. And then Omar Al-Ghabra has a hot yoga routine. You're allowed to watch videos of Omar Al-Ghabra doing hot yoga. And by the way, if you want to see more videos of Omar Al-Ghabra doing hot yoga, like and subscribe and share the video. This is the only place on the internet where you will get Omar Al-Ghabra just as one of those 80s chicks doing hot yoga. And I know you want that. So, like, share, subscribe, or else there'd be no Omar Al-Ghabra, sexy Omar Al-Ghabra videos for you. That's the thing. So, okay, we got Rolling Thunder coming in this weekend. Rolling Thunder rolling down to Ottawa right now. So you have the Freedom Convoy, which is highly successful, and then you will have Rolling Thunder. And I guess a good transitioning thing is one of the best things the Freedom Convoy did is it got the friggin' COVID numbers off the news. They cured COVID. The truckers cured COVID. So thank you to the truckers for curing COVID. That was pretty sweet of you. Thanks for doing that. But by getting all the COVID stuff off the news, right, they couldn't fear-monger on COVID anymore. And then it made them easier to take away the restrictions because they didn't have David Fishman getting up there every day to be like, science says on the back of this sticker, clearly the science says, you're all going to die. And then even more science, this empty cup says, you're all going to die right now. And then if I read the science on, this, the back of a picture of me and my nephew, it says we're all still going to die. That's another thing that just proves we're all going to die. And that was the news before the Freedom Convoy. By the way, spoiler, guys, if you want any breaking COVID, I just got a scoop from CBC. Breaking news, you're all going to die. But the Freedom Convoy managed to get all this nonsense off the air for a bit, right? And then Ukraine came, and then it was all Ukraine. And then Elon Musk took off Ukraine. So if anything, it's good that Operation Rolling Thunder, what they probably will be able to do is cut out, a good 20 to 30 minutes of fear propaganda from the news cycle of basic COVID. Now, they'll do fear propaganda on Rolling Thunder because someone in Operation Rolling Thunder probably has 3 or 4 jaywalking tickets from somewhere in Saskatchewan in 2007 that they haven't paid, which means he is a national security threat. So, guys, be scared.
What I always find really frustrating with all these movements is that everyone can see that it's a movement of like thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people, yet you'll still have people who believe the media coverage when they just find 5 crazy people, like isolated crazy people, and film them. They're like, this is the entire group of people. But I think it kind of works in Canada because people are very like neurotically avoidant of anything like political sounding. So if anyone's like hyper political at any of these events, people like instinctually find them kind of like off-putting. I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous because I'm already seeing that sort of like that spin starting to happen with Glenn McGregor and some of the CTV journalists just going around and finding like isolated conspiracy theorists and sort of pretending that this has anything to do with Rolling Thunder.
Yeah, that's the thing. So any of the PC leadership candidates weighed in on where they stand on Rolling Thunder. I don't think any of the ones who have qualified have weighed in on what it stands. I mean, Jean Charest is against the entire Freedom Convoy to begin with. Patrick Brown doesn't care unless they actually do Patrick Brown's interesting because they're people trying to make the argument they're a terrorist organization, so I don't think he supports them. But if the truckers officially do become a terrorist organization, maybe he will. Hamilton.
No, Oh, it's going to be really sad that we're never going to be hearing what Leona Alislev's position on all this is.
No,
She sadly dropped out of the race today. The former Liberal who became a Conservative, who became a leadership candidate, who has now become not a leadership candidate. It was a roller coaster ride, and everyone's going to have to just dress up in their their sackcloths and ashes and go out into the streets and just moan because Leona's not running anymore. I don't know. I didn't understand why they thought that she was why she thought she was going to get into the race.
Yeah, it was all okay. So Lena Aslov is done. I gotta imagine. I'm sure Joseph Borgalt, he's in favor of it. It seems like right up his alley. Just jumping in. If you want someone there, I think the other ones are sort of waiting. I think. Listen, and I'm not enabling this behavior. This is just us giving political commentary here. They're Conservative Party candidates, so what they're probably going to do is wait to the end of the weekend, see if it ends up being a good or bad thing. Like they're going to wait to see how toxic it is / was before endorsing or distancing themselves from it. So expect Poilievre, Lewis, Brown, Roman Baber, Scott Atchison, all of them to sort of take a wait and see approach, and then see if they should tacitly support it in the future or not. That's just good politics, standard losing Conservative Party politics. By good politics, I mean the politics that has enabled us to be politically behind the eight ball perpetually. But that's sort of what you're looking at here is classic Conservative Party. Waiting.
I don't fully fault them for it because to a certain extent, a slight wait and see approach is not too bad. But yeah, it's when it's 5 days later and they're like, "Oh, I was always in favor of it." That's when it kind of gets really kind of disgusting and dishonest. If you didn't say anything about it at the time, then don't say that you were in favor of it. It was just a thing that happened. But I don't know. Everyone has to always sort of try and capitalize in politics, but they also have to do it in the slowest way possible.
Yeah, I mean that's just the nature of these people. Yeah, so listen, I don't mind if they wait and then they come back and they just say what they should be saying is people have the right to protest, and this isn't this is they should just say they should take a strong stance that they have the right to do this, and it hasn't happened yet, so they don't know, but they're just riding for freedom. There's not you can't it's all ridiculous. We're literally saying you can't ride bicycles and say freedom anymore. That's now dangerous talk. That's radical protesting.
And they're not even going to be riding. They're not even going to be riding around the Parliament because Trudeau and Jim Watson still have Parliament locked down. There's still barricades all over Parliament Hill to keep people from even getting close to it. So they're essentially saying if you ride a particular type of vehicle in Ottawa on the 29th or the 30th of April, you're somehow committing a crime. It's silly, and I think that I'm not sure how this even pays off in favor of Jim Watson or Justin Trudeau because it's just so histrionic that you're going to preemptively tell bikers that they're not allowed to drive around and have coffee in the city.
Yeah, it's so elitist in its approach. So I had this conversation with family last week or 2 weeks ago or one Friday night dinner. I think it was the last week. And, they were trying to get my things. We got to the convoy talking. And, I was one of the things I don't do is I'm good at giving liberals sympathy and treating them with oh, you have good intentions and I understand, but I don't do it on COVID stuff. I specifically don't give them any sympathy when it comes to their feelings on COVID. No, only hard facts because your feelings get people thrown in prison and people's bank accounts got frozen. So don't play this. But one of the things they're trying to say is I took my cousin who was nice to downtown she's in Ottawa. She's at Ottawa University. I said, come down on a Saturday. Let's just walk through it during a day. And she admitted, okay, yeah, it's not that bad. Then she was talking to her and her friends, and they're saying okay, yeah, it was that. But at night, the attitude kind of shifts. They kind of gave this thing. It's okay, yeah, it was fine during the day, but at night, me and my friends, they felt unsafe. And it's well, again, I've been there at nights. It wasn't much safe. Listen, what you're saying is you saw working class people at night outside in your city. And that's basically what it comes down to. Because, again, none of it manifested. The truckers never attacked you. They never harassed you. And there's a 99.9% chance if you called for help, those men would have come. There's a
It
mental
really that's the purely the liberal mentality that the
exactly.
truckers show up and they reduce the crime rate by 95%, but I don't want to see these disgusting blue collar people around, kind of a thing. Where I can't believe that they're walking around wearing jeans and t-shirts. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Kind of a thing. Like oh, I can't believe these guys wear hard hats. This is like too much for me. It's like whenever you go to a city
Really
like
was.
LA or Los Angeles, they're disgusting, but it's because they've sort of pushed all that to the outside. But as soon as a homeless encampment or even just Trump supporters go into like Beverly Hills area, now it's a big panic. Even though even though it probably actually clean at least the Republicans moving into the area would actually like reduce the crime rate, but whatever. People really kind of
Well, not
want
the
their
homeless encampment, but
that's why I was correcting myself a little bit there. But yeah, it's just the sort of liberal city mentality that I kind of want stuff around that's gratifying to me, and I think it's dangerous when I see someone that I don't know. It's very much like sort of like a ideological paranoia that if someone does, I see someone who doesn't believe the things I believe, I think they're immediately dangerous. Sort of the words are violence kind of a thing, even though objectively, on paper, they made everything safer.
Yeah, exactly. It was pure. We are, upper middle class city girls. We are in a city, and how dare these blue collar people come to our city? And I have no sympathy for that argument, especially in Ottawa, as it is the nation's capital. Like, no. Everyone has the right to come down on the capital. Like, you don't get to say that in Ottawa or Washington. I'm not like, listen, it's still ridiculous in Toronto. It's ridiculous in Montreal. Like, I'm not saying it's good, but it takes an extra step and an extra level of, hubris, let's say, to say that in Ottawa. He's like, that's the nation's capital. It's literally for everyone. You don't get to be disgusted when people from rural Saskatchewan come down and protest there because I don't like the way they look. Well, tough. Like, yeah, as you said, they wore jeans and they didn't have fancy jackets. They didn't have fancy pants. They didn't have fancy shoes. They had, tough, for the weather.
They're not antisocial. I can't believe this.
So here's the thing.
They make noise because they talk to other people.
So here's a very interesting question. Can Ontario Bill 100 actually be used to seize property from protesters this weekend? And I think they could do whatever they want, is my answer there. So I think the answer is yes. Now, the other thing is, will they? Will they be crazy enough and sort of like, come at me, bro? Like, we're going to do whatever we want now. There's no more laws in Canada. Like, we are the law, Judge Dredd type style. Yeah, like I actually do think the answer is yes. And I do think even if it failed, they'd still be able to do it because, they can just, as you've seen, they've been able to invoke the Emergencies Act with impunity. So there are no checks and balances to the people in power in Canada.
I think the only check on Doug Ford right now is the fact that there's an upcoming election. And I think that he would know that it looks extremely bad. But to a certain extent, you don't actually have the ability as the premier to say that, oh, you're not allowed to enforce Bill 100 anymore. It would be public prosecutors that would be enforcing it, or individual police officers in different departments. But yeah, like I think that it's an arbitrary law, which means it will be enforced arbitrarily on people who aren't doing anything wrong, but the government just happens to not like. Like if there's enough media attention, enough nonsense legacy media coverage about how, oh, the bikers are taking over their city, they're occupying it, and they're making traffic slightly slower. The government will probably find a way to try and seize some people's motorcycles and try and seize trucks and then trying to persecute a few people. But I think it's all going to be backfiring in some way. That's what's actually the sort of the beauty of Rolling Thunder is. They're not sticking around Ottawa for extended protests. They're basically doing a ride around Ottawa for a couple of days and then leaving. And I think it will make the histrionics from the media and politicians way more beneficial to the freedom movement than like the anti-freedom movement. I suppose.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think Karen's right here. Like the underlying is like this is all avoidable by the government just not being a totalitarian regime. Like just end all this nonsense. End all the nonsense. Every other country is. Stop. Just stop with all this stuff. Stop with all the nonsense. Stop with all the craziness. And
I think people are going to see that the government came out this weekend probably to pick a fight because there's nothing happening and somehow a fight breaks out. It's not because anyone was doing anything rowdy. And I think the Freedom Convoy proved that. And now I think this one is going to prove it almost even more simply because it's somehow more benign than people like setting up bouncy castles and roasting hot dogs at night.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, I think we've said what we needed to say. I know this only went half an hour, but because we're going to be live streaming from there when someone gets into town and it's hard to coordinate with him, I don't want to sort of stack these things. So on the National Telegraph Facebook page, there will be live stream in Ottawa of Rolling Thunder and what goes on there. We'll be in contact with people on the ground. I can't be in Ottawa this weekend, but we do have people down there. So I think that's great. Please like, share, subscribe, follow the page, like the page. You'll get more updates. And also, if you do support the show, get a tattoo of Wyatt's face onto your face. It lets the ladies know that you mean business and you're probably a massive chick magnet and have no emotional damage whatsoever. That's what face tattoos are for. Face tattoos convey emotional stability above all else. All right. Good night, everyone, and have a great, great weekend. Thank you. Bye.